All right, so we're going to start the RNESU meeting at 5:05. Can I get someone to make a motion to review and accept the agenda, please? So Jessica and then Becky, please. Yep. All of those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Anyone want to talk to us? Does not look like it. So we're going to move on. Consent agenda. Can I get someone to make a motion, please?
So moved.
That was Becky. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
And that was Jess. Okay, all of those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Consent agenda passes. Superintendent's informational report.
There isn't anything that is new that hasn't been shared with the OVU and the VU boards. So we're good.
Okay. All right, then it is that time where we have a presentation tonight by our very own Director of Business and Finance, Brenda Fleming, to give us an overview of the business office, food service, finances, facilities, and transportation. Please take it away, Brenda.
Great, thank you. Chris, did you want me to project or do you want to?
Well, you can present unless you want to send me the link.
Let me try.
You can throw it in chat. I think I had the old one.
I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay.
I have it right here.
Okay. Oh. Exit. Let me start back at the top. Unless you wanted to start on slide 10, Brenda.
Right, I'll talk quickly.
Okay.
So I gotta move us to the other side so I can see. Thank you. Next slide. Damn, that's not gonna work. So just as Lori just said, kind of give you a general overview of what business and finance is. So under business, I'm responsible, or our office is responsible for facilities, transportation, grants management in coordination with the grant manager, food service, summer after school programming. We also oversee investing, ELE fund mostly, but also small scholarship accounts, compliance with laws and regulations, legal and risk management. They're kind of sisters in the equation. And then on finance, there's some pictures of our schools. So just a little bit about our facilities and our facility team. So we now have a district-wide facility manager, that is Rich Biggie. He shares two responsibilities, transportation and facilities. That has been challenging this year because we don't have adequate staff in transportation. So he's been bus driving a lot as well. I know you've heard that before. We also are in the process of looking for a new admin assistant for him because his current admin assistant is retiring, Beth Cole, in June. We also have a 100% district-wide maintenance position who also backs up as a substitute custodian when need be. That's David Kenyon, and he goes to all of the different schools to kind of make that initial assessment for the head custodians about when and where and who to call for maintenance-related issues. So what we do is we maintain our facility operating plan for each school. We update it and adjust this document. It is a living, breathing document that we try to keep as current as possible. Certain things come in and kind of creep in that we didn't expect, like Lester, PFAS in the water, things like that, essential lead maintenance. We also oversee the grounds, so we evaluate playground safety. We work with our insurance company, who will actually send us a certified playground inspector to kind of look at the playground and find areas where we need to make improvements. 80% of their comments are in surfacing and making sure that we have enough cushioning for a fall on the playground. We coordinate the projects, including the budgets, the timelines, and permits. I know you heard from me last month talking about everything we're doing this summer from the facility fund, as well as the projects that we have online with ESSER funds, the HVAC air quality projects, collectively of $1.2 million worth of projects in the works. At Barstow, we have, you know, a $450,000 modular unit coming in, as well as a $200,000 shop project, and we're adding new initiatives all the time. We also have a bell that we have to talk about more again and continuously. And so what that means is it means reviewing the contract, maintaining the contract, and watching for compliance. This is where I get to, where we tend to have a lot of tug and pull, because you know, Rich wants to get the job done, and I want to make sure that the contract protects us, because you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. The contract defines the understanding before there is a problem, so that if and when there is a problem, you can go to the contract and have confidence that you met the goals and expectations of each party. So that's a lot of upfront work that I think is really important to help make us continue to have positive relationships with contractors and successful projects. We oversee procurement, bid laws, which, just to remind you, last year, so it's been a full year now, the state bid limit was raised from 15,000 to 40. Annually, we set the small micro purchase threshold at the state limit, which is $40,000. And what that means is for a project under $40,000, we do not need to receive a bid. We don't have to go through a formal process. Between $40,000, did I say 40 million?
No.
No, good.
No.
Because I was thinking 40 million. Between 40,000 and 500,000, we have to procure at least 3 bids, and then over 500,000. So think big project, you know, an addition, something like that. There's a really laid out new law that talks about how you have to pre-qualify bidders and everything else. So we monitor that and make sure that we meet the letter of the law, the intent of the law, and we spend a lot of time making sure that we apply the intent of the law, that we work hard to be open, to have open and honest bidding, to not have preferential treatment in our contractors, because that's how we continue to get contractors to bid on our projects. We also have 2 house licenses, the Blue House, because we're not good at naming and that's the color it's painted, and the Barstow House, because we're not good at naming and that's where it's located. Both of those are monitored and currently rented to employees, and we have a licensing agreement with them. And then we work collectively with the rest of the team on the actual physical security of the buildings and transportation. And both of those are instrumental in looking at our overall emergency operations plans. And so we're members of that team as well. So another picture, I like that picture of the roof of all of our solar.
Hang on.
Okay.
All right, you're good.
Okay, next slide.
Was it not going?
Just a little tell you about our transportation. You know, we're responsible for to and from school. We have 25 drivers and 5 bus monitors, and we have a fleet of 30 buses, 28 full-size, 1 van, and 1 small bus. We're going to be talking about that later on in regards to replacing the buses or staying on a current replacement schedule. So in addition to and from school, we coordinate field trips, and they are becoming more and more challenging with driver recruitment and retention, which we're failing. Not the retention so much as the recruitment. we can't seem to find drivers. We do have a very favorable pay schedule, which I was hoping would help, maybe kind of steal or entice drivers from other districts. Sorry, no shame in that, right? But it didn't work out that way. So we are responsible for the fleet maintenance, the repairs, and the replacement. Bus bidding, again, also on your agenda a little bit later. And in addition to emergency drills at each facility every month, there are periodic emergency drills on the buses as well. Grants management. So I work very closely with the Director of Curriculum Instruction and the Director of Special Services, as well as Information Technology and their assistants to write grants, manage grants, code grants, maintain compliance with grants, identify the difference of whether it's a state grant and what the procurement or purchasing responsibilities and requirements are versus a federal grant, which adds a whole new layer of purchasing and procurement requirements. I am responsible for training these staff on these things because we need to do it as a team. So annually, we kind of all have a little refresher training and attend daily trainings to just be reminded about these processes. And then we monitor it to assure compliance and then report on it monthly. And it is audited, obviously. So just to let you know, these are annual grants. So annually, we get just shy of $2 million annually. These are entitlement grants. So they come to us and we have restrictions on how we can spend them, but these are the amounts that we get. So we don't do anything to get those. And then we also have the state grants, and these, the majority of this 3.2 million was formerly special education. I think it's still actually titled that in this year's budget, which is where this was clipped from. But it really is now the Act 173 funding, or the census-based block grant. In addition to grants at the supervisory union level, we also receive transportation. Comes to the supervisory union. It's about $45,000, 45% of our total to and from transportation costs. About $290,000 annually. Otter Valley receives a small schools grant of just under $200,000, $196 annually, and that's because we merged under Act 46, and that stays in perpetuity until they change the law. Vocational education is reimbursed based on a mileage amount, as is driver's ed, and then we have a small little bit for non-enrolled vocational students. Non-enrolled vocational students are adults without a diploma who take classes at a vocational center anywhere in the state but live in our schools, or in our towns, one of our 8 towns. So they don't have to attend a high school or one of our schools, but they can attend classes at vocational centers. The law requires us to pay them, and then we also get an offsetting grant for that. We also receive a pilot grant, a payment in lieu of taxes for forest funds, specifically in Chittenden and Goshen. Mostly Chittenden, approximately $20,000, and Goshen approximately $5,000. Those go to both Barstow and Otter Valley, respectively. We also receive Medicaid EPSBT funds, about $20,000 annually to help with health services in our schools. Fast Act 250 grants are an annual grant, around $5,000, sometimes it's up to about $6,500, and that's really to support PBIS and similar trainings, positive behavior intervention training. Medicaid funds, this is a nice big pot. Thank you, Beth Ripley. She generates all of the paperwork for this reimbursement based on the services of our special educators and our special education staff, including paraeducators. Annually, we receive about $500,000, and we earmark the majority of it to Rutland mental health contracts, to mental health support services in our schools. And then from time to time, we have smaller VSA, VSBA, or VSBIT grants ranging from, you know, $500 to $5,000. This page is probably not new. We actually just received a little increase on some of our HVAC grants down on the bottom. I haven't had a chance to update it, but that's really where we are with ESSER and COVID funds. So collectively, we are over 11 million, and I think we just received another 4 and another 8 for Lothrop on those last little bullets on the bottom for Lothrop and Leicester. Food service, we're going to talk a lot about this later, but we just completed a 3-month process of doing our bidding for food service programs for a new food service management company. We oversee the contract and maintain the contract. COVID has been challenging with food service. For the last 3 years, we've been under various different rules related to COVID, starting in 2020 when we shut down and moved to delivering meals to families' homes 7 days a week, or the equivalent of 7 days a week, breakfast and lunch. So this is going to be a new contract with maybe even some new rules again. The legislature did approve universal meals, and the governor has indicated that he will veto that. So we're kind of waiting to see where that will be. But our 5 years is up, so we can sign a food service management contract annually, and we have to bid it every 5 years. So we can award it for 1 year at a time and renew it for up to 4 more times for a total of 5 years. Then we have to go through a very prescribed bidding process that takes approximately 60 to 90 days. That starts with us evaluating or creating a rubric of how we are going to evaluate the bid. The bid is very prescribed in the things that we can and must look for, and some of the points that we must have, we must use to review the bids. So the biggest points have to go, for example, to the cheapest, the lowest cost bid. We've done that. We met with a group. There was a secretary from Barstow, so that would be Kim Raymond, a teacher, Monica Keith, an elementary teacher, Monica Keith from Neshby, Christine Everett from Honor Valley, an assistant principal, Deb Alexander, and myself, and then Laura Jacobowski, who we've just hired for my assistant position, will join us in the last week to help review these bids and evaluate our options. So after we award a bid, we have to process monthly claims for reimbursement, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables. And then annually, we have to ask families to submit for pre-reuse status. This is going to become more challenging. I think you've heard me say it before. When meals are free, there's no reason for families to fill out that intrusive and personal information, except the more they do, the better we are in regards to grants and funding in the future, because the better numbers we have that accurately reflect the poverty of our schools and our communities help us in other ways. So that'll be something we'll have to continue to monitor. I think that's everything on that page. Summer and after school, we have an after school director, Nancy Bird. She's fabulous. She helps coordinate the after school programs. We this year will have one summer program that will be at SOAR, the SOAR program at Neshby, where Pittsford, Leicester kids are welcome to join, and we will provide transportation. But we maintain licensing, similar qualifications. What that means, we have equitable staffing ratios. With Nancy as the director, we have planned enrichment, homework, free play activities, and she really works with the local coordinators, for program leaders to help create enriching programs. Investing, we have a daily trust that we've been monitoring and changing a little bit due to just changes in our organization and the way the trust was written. So we've been working with that. The Burdett Trust is another endowment that we have. What's a little bit different with Ely is we manage, we own, and it's under our auspices. So we actually hire an investment banker to do all of the planning on that. I am not an investing guru, so they take care of that for us. The Burdett Trust is interesting. It is a bequest to us from Dan Burdett, but it is entrusted to the town of Pittsburgh to manage and own. And the little wrinkle on that is the board members from Otter Valley and from Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Select Board have to unanimously agree on any withdrawals from the Burdett Fund. And then there's the Barstow Endowment, and so we have about $100,000 in the Barstow Endowment that we use to pay $2,000 a year in scholarships to Rutland High School. And as we also have the New York Enrichment Fund that pays $25,000 a year to Barstow Memorial School for enrichment activities. And then we have a couple of smaller ones that we manage that are really Otter Valley scholarships. Compliance with laws and regulations. So alphabet soup. This is where I work closely with the HR department, making sure that we don't go awry with the American with Disabilities Act, that we monitor leave time for ADA, workers' comp, family medical leave, Vermont Parental Leave Act, and as well as the Fair Labor Standards Act. In addition to that, we help oversee compliance with our contracts, the master agreements, what the board said are the benefits and the requirements of both teachers for paras, drivers, and non-union staff in our policy. Compliance with other policies and procedures, compliance with Title 16 education laws, that's for the $40,000 bidding one that comes into play. And then the federal compliance and procurement processes under the uniform guidance for any federal grant that we receive. A new one that you will hear me talking about, or may hear me talking about under construction with federal funds, is that we need to comply with the Davis-Bacon Act. It's not as good as it sounds. There's no bacon involved. But that is basically what it says is we need to pay a prevailing wage, and we need to prove and document that not only we pay anybody we hire, that any subcontractor that we hire that hires another type of contractor also has to prove compliance with Davis-Bacon. Very paperwork heavy, and that starts at $2,000. So while the federal and the state allows us to spend $40,000 without a bid, Davis-Bacon kicks in at $2,000. Then compliance, risk management, and legal. They're all siblings in the same family. So we work to, during contract negotiations, you have the pleasure of listening to me talk about all of the different alphabet soups and how they interrelate, and what the current contract says, and why it might say that, what the history is. That's kind of the beauty of being here. As long as I've been here, beauty, detriment, I'm not sure, but also insurance matters. We buy our insurance from BizFit. BizFit is a self-insured pool, so that means our insurance needs are tailored to schools, and they provide things that third-party or commercial insurances just wouldn't provide for a school, because they're providing for a commercial market, a broader market. Just a reminder, I do sit on the board. You authorized that years ago. I think my term's coming up soon, but we do buy our insurances from BizFit. I also work with Barstow, a lot of fun on a high school choice policy over the last couple of years. General policies that have anything to do with finances and risk management, transportation and facilities, licensing and agreements with contractors, and then bonding and bidding. And then risk management, the goal here is to make sure that we have an appropriate amount of insurance and that we evaluate and do things that mitigate our risks. And the biggest thing that I think I help do is make sure that our contracts are good. Again, if we have a good understanding of each party's responsibilities and obligations before there's a problem, then if we get to a problem or when we get to a problem, it becomes less of a risk. So just to let you know kind of who's on our team, I jumped ahead to July 1st. So Laura Jacobowski has joined our team. She is full-time and the new Assistant Finance Director. Pam Reed and Pam Parker, you have to be a Pam in order to be a bookkeeper in our district. Both of them are 100% now, and both of them do bookkeeping as well as payroll. Barbara Phillips is our payroll and benefits coordinator, and Brooke Dolan, well, technically not in the business office, she's certainly a member of the finance team, and she's our human resource coordinator. Keep talking, I'm sorry. So finance, what we do the financial planning and prepping. Obviously you hear from me a lot about budgeting and procurement purchasing. We help implement, monitor, and evaluate our PO system, our P cards and our contracts. Payroll, HR processing and compliance, again that alphabet soup, how people get paid, what their benefits are according to our contract as well as according to various different laws that we fall under. I manage the district cash flow and coordinate with our school treasurers, our school district treasurers as necessary. Thankfully, we haven't borrowed in the last few years. Barstow always gets me a little nervous in February and March because of your tax collection dates, but so far so good. We also work with the school secretaries and principals on student activities accounts. And you'll remember that every October and November, you kind of get a report that says these are the different activities and this was their transactions during the year. How much did we collect? How much did we spend? And what are their ending balances? So I work with the principals to make sure there are no stale accounts there. And if there are stale accounts, that we reactivate them or close them, depending on what the purpose is. Negotiations, I'm glad and happy to report there will be no negotiations in fiscal year 24. We have multiple year contracts, so we all get a reprieve for a year. And then we also do some bulk buying. But we do it for things that are easy, like sometimes fuel, sometimes pellets, paper. A lot of things are not really bulk at the end of the day when you're looking at the things that a school needs in regards to school supplies. Monitoring the board, you hear a lot from me. I don't know if you want me to go through everything because I think maybe there's 2 months I don't come and tell you what's going on in regards to financing or budgets. So then kind of extracurricular, one of the things I'm doing right now is VASBO. So VASBO is the Vermont Association of School Business Officials. It's one of the most active and important memberships that I have. It gives me a connection to my colleagues throughout the state, but it also connects me to our partners in the state, whether it's the Vermont Superintendents Association, the Vermont School Boards Association, the Vermont Principals Association, the VCSEA, Vermont Council of Special Educators. All of those organizations work collectively, and we have an opportunity monthly to talk and share what's going on in the world, as well as share ways and ideas to be more efficient or less efficient in regards to e-finance. any of those things. And one of the things that I'm doing this week is I'm on the VASBO Tri-State Committee, and once a year we plan a 3-day conference with the state of New Hampshire and Vermont to provide really hands-on, timely professional development for business managers. I've also mentioned I'm a member of the Business Board, and I frequently am asked to testify to the legislature on various things. This year's been a quiet year, but in the past I've testified on Act 173. I sit on the committee for the Act 173 transition. I testified in favor of 173. I testified for Act 46. I testified a lot on e-finance, universal pre-K, and high school tuition. Phew.
Does anyone have any questions for Brenda?
Thank you. That are really small.
Sure.
One is, you said something about, actually, I guess what I'm wondering is you also take care of, like, your office if, like, OCA and Sudbury and Whiting schools, unlike Otter Valley, who we know our own ones, right? So you guys also do all those kind of small contracts as well?
Yes. We do all of them. We do Otter Valley as well. So we organize the bidding for who does the contracts, or organize actually who does it. And some of the schools actually have equipment, and the custodian will do some of it, like the snow blowing of the walkways and the shoveling of the emergency exits, that type of thing.
And my second one is a bigger one, but really, and it's in all seriousness, like, how do you have time to do all that? And is it because that you've been a business manager for so long, it's easy for you to absorb all that, and someday when you're not here,
yeah,
you need more people? Like, what is, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm asking?
I do. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. So I do think one of the things, and thank you for asking this question, I think one of the things when you've been a business manager, especially in the same district as long as I have, you take on one more thing, and one more thing, and one more thing. And when it's only one more thing, it's okay, you can kind of do it. Then you get to where I'm at now and where I was when I came to you this fall and said I really need help, because I can't keep, if I look at what I did when I was hired in 1995 to what I do today, it's extremely different. There's a lot of things that have happened and a lot of things that have been brought in, and some of those have been helped by technology, because technology has changed a lot in the 30 years, but some have not. Food service, for example, last week, because we have a surplus in the food service fund, I was able to bring Laura on sooner, and I gave her food service to do. She worked a full week last week on food service. If she didn't do that, I would be 30 hours behind, 30 more hours behind, because I had to get this done in order to get the bid, in order to, like, the timelines were so tight. So I think I do it because I'm obviously very devoted to the district, but I know it, so I kind of know it so intimately. I know what it means to add something, but I am very fortunate to have been able to hire someone, and let me tell you, to score Laura Jacobowski, all of my friends up here at VASBO think I am, that I've really scored the jackpot. So just so you know, Laura Jacobowski and I actually started as business managers together in 1995. She was the business manager at then Addison Rutland Supervisory Union, which is now Slate Valley, so Fairhaven. If we have a twin district, it's them. They're the same. Fairhaven is Brandon, Castleton is Barstow. They have the same sort of makeup. They have, West Haven, Orwell, and Benson. We have Leicester, Sudbury, and Whiting. We're really the same. We started together in 1995, about 8 years ago, right before Act 46. She said, this is killing me. The number of board meetings, the number of boards at the time. There was a time when we had 11 boards. So she left and went to Castleton University, and then has realized that Castleton University is, well, we've all seen it in the papers. They've had a lot of changes. And so she was looking for something else, and Debbie Alexander was getting her taxes done and said to her husband, hey, how's Laura? And he said, Laura's looking for a job. And Debbie said, Brenda's looking for an employee. And so we are very, very fortunate.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Brenda, very much.
You're welcome.
All right, we are going to move on to our next piece of business, which is to go over the monitoring report that Kristen prepared for us for 2.6 asset protection. Does anyone want to make a motion to accept her report, and then we can talk about it if needed?
I need to accept
All right, thanks, Barbara. Anyone want to second it? All right, Jessica's going to second. Is there any discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all of those in favor of accepting monitoring report 2.6 asset protection, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Which is just another example of how awesome Brenda is. The entire report is Brenda.
Excellent. All right, then we're going to move into our reports that we need to monitor, which we had tabled to from the last meeting. Board monitoring report 4.1, which is governing style, should be in your packet. I don't have it readily handy for some reason. But if someone wants to, we don't actually have to accept our own, but I do want to know if anybody had any changes to it, because we have reviewed it before. Thank you. 4.1, governing style. So, according to what I have here, we didn't have any reasonable interpretations, but we did have examples of where we actually do this stuff. So if you don't want to make any changes, I'm happy for someone to say that. For 4.1, any changes? No? Okay. Then we're going to leave 4.1 alone and move on. The next one is 4.2, board job description. Again, we don't have any reasonable interpretations in there, but we do have all of our examples of when we do this. Although it does look like we need to make a couple changes to this one, because Jacob Posner is no longer on this board.
Jean.
And neither is Jean.
Yep.
So. Alright, so we're going to get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that.
The comment about Jean, I mean, obviously you can just change that to Kristen, because Kristen's communications and superintendent information to the public and community has been wonderful as well.
So how about I just change it to the superintendent? That way maybe we don't have to change it in the past. Okay? Alright, anything else? No? Okay. I'm going to assume that you guys all think these are great. And then our last one is 4.3, agenda planning. Let's see. Any changes? I don't see that any need to be made, but I will acquiesce to you guys. Any changes? Any changes? Okay, they look good to me. We'll make that one change to 4.2, and we will get those set up for the next thing. All right, so we are going to move on to our food service contract. Can I get someone to make this motion, and then we can have Brenda talk about how this all went down?
I move,
You want to make the, can you say it on screen? It's not, or do you need it?
yeah.
Oops.
Oh, wait, I do have the agenda. Hang on a
Okay,
second.
it's on the back side.
Sorry. Sorry, I move we accept the food service contract to award Abbey Group the FY 2024 food service management contract.
Keep going.
The Abbey Group scored the highest of 2 bids on the evaluation matrix. The AOE has reviewed the bidding process, evaluated the results, and confirmed the district is authorized to award the contract to the Abbey Group.
Okay, is there a second? Becky, thank you. Okay, so Brenda, did you want to talk any more about the process? I know we talked about the process a little bit.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, so I think you saw the letter that says how much they're charging per meal, and we realize that we know that the program is only going to be as good as the people who are operating it. And with COVID, we haven't been able to manage the program as much as we would normally like to, but I think everybody is interested in being more active in managing the program and in working with Abbey to make the program really meaningful to our students. And to do that, we have an advisory council that has to, at a minimum, meet once a year. And we're going to instead kind of schedule, especially at our bigger schools, that they meet at least once a month so that they can really improve our participation and really work to design the program that meets our student needs, knowing that they have to do it with $4.65 per lunch, $2.54 for breakfast. We did also ask Laura to visit. We received 2 bids. We received the bid from the Abbey Group, and we received the bid from a company called K-12 Aladdin. And they have been in our neighborhood. They have been in Greater Rutland, or formerly Rutland Town School District, Pulteney, Proctor, West Rutland, that district there, for 15 years. So we did send Laura to go have lunch. And she had lunch at one of their schools, and she had lunch at Lothrop to see the Abbey Group. So she saw an elementary in both, and then she saw a high school in both. And she said, you know, honestly, the food, the selection, were really comparable. We also hosted Greater Rutland Supervisory Union. They came and did the same thing. They received 2 bids as well. And they came to visit our Abbey program because their experience has been with K-12 Aladdin. When we did the scoring, so we did the scoring independently, we had a rubric that had a maximum of 135 points. And all 5 of us, with the exception, we had a couple of people who couldn't come because they had a death, and Monica had a death in the family, and Christine, welcome Christine, had a personal issue to deal with her father. So the people that were there scored it, and the scores for the Aladdin program were around 109 to 113, and the Abbey program was 128 to 134. So it was pretty clear spread that the Abbey, according to the criteria we had identified, was a better program. The biggest thing that I know I had my eyes on is that the Abbey has an online opportunity for parents to apply for free and reduced. And that's a much easier way for parents to apply for free and reduced if they have online capabilities, because they will not be able to continue on the process until they filled out everything, and they will also be able to know immediately whether their results are, you know, how they score. So knowing that it's going to be challenging to get people, families, to apply for free and reduced, potentially when we may have universal meals or free meals, and that there's not a real benefit for them to apply for free and reduced, making it easier is really important to us. And it did score a lot of points. Aladdin doesn't seem to even have product. That was really the biggest difference between the two.
Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the issues was, the quality and the taste of the food and everything, and I know you guys were thinking about that when you were doing the rubric. Is there going to be some type of assessment or review to see if that quality really is continuing and like meets the kids' standards for quality too, I guess, just because we might think it's good, they might still think it's absolutely disgusting and not eat it?
Yes, right, because I grew up with, remember they used to do something like pea wiggle, like who would ever eat it, right? But that's what they served at hot lunch. So yes, that's what the advisory council is. So the advisory council has to have a student or multiple students on it, has to have somebody in authority, whether it's a principal or an assistant principal or a teacher, kind of lead it, and it has to also include the food service management company. So we know this isn't, we could kind of rank from the things I've heard throughout this process as to which is the strongest program and which is the weakest program. Unfortunately, I think that ranking is real, and I think a lot of it has to do with us not taking advantage of that advisory council and really working with it and really saying, okay, this is what we're expecting, this is what we want to see more of, this is what we want to see less of. So I believe, and again, we're also recognizing that they have to do more of and less of at $2.57 for breakfast and $4.65 for lunch. So trying to keep our expectations in check, but also say there are ways to prepare foods that attract a young person's palate, and how do we do that versus what do we do with commodities to just use them. So yes, the goal is that we would hopefully monthly meet as an advisory group to really be evaluating that.
Cool. Any other questions? Yes, Barbara.
Brenda, can you speak to whether or not there's a criteria for assessing how much food is locally sourced in the food contract?
Yes, that's a good question. That was actually one of our evaluation criteria, and there is a local foods grant. So when we use, and you can't count milk, so not counting milk, when we use 15% of our food locally sourced, and locally is defined as Vermont, we get added reimbursement. So the contract does have to identify in their invoices how much is locally sourced, what that local source is. There's also points in the contract rubric for promotional materials that really highlights, especially when they use farmers local to us or farmers within district, to actually highlight those. And one of them, I happened to see a picture of Champlain orchards in there, so that they do have promotional materials that we are hoping that they will really invest in, letting our students know that this food is coming from, this farm and local.
Any other questions?
I think just one thing on that, the thing that's a little bit challenging with local in Vermont is we have to go beyond the apple. And, a lot of our rich local produce comes in the summer when we're not in operation, but we still need to try to figure out how to either go beyond the apple or make the apple special.
I have a follow-up to that. I don't know much about this, but I've heard of a group called Acorn that helps, I think, collect and distribute locally sourced products and then distribute them to, various places, I think school districts among them. And their focus is, like I say, supporting local farmers and local enterprises. I don't know if they work with I think they work with some school districts, and I don't know. I'm curious to know if they can fit into this picture in any way.
So actually, I think they were in, so The bids are 250 pages of information each. So I'm going from memory, but I remember seeing something about Acorn in one of the bids. I'm not sure which one. I will ironically be seeing both of those vendors while I'm here at this conference, so I will talk to Abby about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding the food service contract? Okay, then all of those in favor of the motion to award the Abbey Group the fiscal year 2024 food service management contract, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Okay. Bus bid approval. Can I get someone to make the motion regarding the bus bid, please? Becky, you want to read it? Can you see it? Oh, I think I lost her.
I have to, sorry,
Okay.
bus,
That's
yes,
right. There you go.
I can see it, sorry.
That's all
I have
right.
all my things open here. Are you ready?
Yep, go for it.
A motion to accept the W.C. Cressy bus bid and approve purchasing two 77-passenger buses for $247,120 and one 66-passenger wheelchair compatible bus for $129,155 for a total of 3 buses for $376,275.
Thanks, Becky. Is there a second? Jess? Thank you. Discussion. So I'm assuming that this maintains our rotation for fleet routine maintenance and whatnot.
Yes, and because it is now taking upwards to a year to get the buses, we have not received last year's buses. We are expecting them, they said in April, but I believe it is now May. So we're expecting them any day now. So the sooner I can place the order, so yes, and because of supply chain issues, we are kind of a year behind, but not because of anything we've done wrong.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Brenda? Okay, all of those in favor of the motion to accept the W.C. Cressy bus bid for 3 buses in the amount of $376,275, please signify by saying aye. Okay, thank you. All right, so our next meeting is set for June 20th here at the Otter Valley Library at 5 p.m. I do not believe we need executive session at this time, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:58. Barbara and Becky. Okay, all in favor? Okay, good night. Thank you so much for coming.